As far as your quiz is concerned, it is on Monday. You guys will have the whole class period. No calculators or anything like that. But there will be 6 multiple choice questions. Right? 6 multiple choice. And there's going to be 7 free response. So 6 of them, you got to pick the right answer. And then 7 of them you have to do for yourself. So 13 questions total. Everybody with me? We're good? All right, now I'm going to go through a couple of different questions that you should be looking at, that you should be familiar with, just to make sure you guys know what you're doing. All right, I'm going to do a couple from 5-2. It's the first page of the review. I'm going to do a few just to make sure you guys are familiar with the types of questions that you're going to see. So the first one I want to show you is number 5. All right, number 5 says 3 to the 3/4 times 27 to the 3/4, right, over 9 to the 3/4. And it's going to ask you to simplify. We have properties of exponents, guys, where if you're dividing exponents that have the same base, you can subtract. If you're multiplying, you can add them. But what do you notice about here? All 3 of these don't have the same base. So there's a couple different ways that you can go about simplifying this. I would go about simplifying it, get them all to have the same base. What do you notice they all could be turned into? What could we have the same base for all of these? 3, right? I can leave 3 to the 3/4 just like that. 3 to the 3/4. What's another way I could write 27 as a base of 3? 3 to the what power? 3 to the 3rd power, okay. If I write 3 to the 3rd power, that is the same thing as the whole number 27. And then this is still to the 3/4 power. And then what's another way I could write 9? 3 to the what? 3 to the 2nd power, okay? So now all we've done is just simplify. We wrote every single whole number, every single base as a 3 to the something. You're going to be able to do that on your quiz, so make sure it's all going to be connected, whether you can write it all as 2 to the something, 3 to the something, 4 to the something. Well, now we can simplify a little more. First thing I'm going to do is distribute. I'm going to distribute this here and this here. So I have 3 to the 3/4 times, excuse me, what happens when I multiply 3 over 1 times 3 over 4? What does that become? 9/4. You guys agree? When you raise a power to a power, you multiply. And then on the bottom, I have 3. If I multiply 2 over 1 times 3/4, what do I get? What do I get? 6/4, which is the same as... Anybody? What's 6 over 4 reduced to? 3 over 2? Okay. All right, now I say, oh, okay, this looks pretty good. What can I do to the top here? If I have the same bases, what do I do to my exponents? I add them. Okay, so what's 3/4 plus 9/4? What is it? Okay, so I have 12 over 4, which is 3. Okay. You guys with me? All right, and then the next thing I'm going to say is, what's 3 cubed? 27, okay, and then you can just leave this on the bottom. Now, I simplified it a little different on the review, and the reason I did that is because this is what kind of a question on your quiz? It's going to be multiple choice. So what I want you guys to see is some of you simplify, some of you see things a little differently. Some of you might have multiplied the top together before you then, combined or anything like that. So you need to be able to simplify. You need to be able to write as same bases with exponents. Either if you're dividing, subtract the exponents. If you're multiplying, add them together. But then you need to be able to pick the choice that is equivalent to how you simplified it. You might stop at simplifying at a different spot as someone else, but this is a multiple choice question, so you need to be able to pick the correct answer. Does that make sense? If you guys see 3 to the 3rd power, you also need to know that that equals what number? 27. Stuff like that, you need to be able to recognize with a multiple choice. I just want to make sure you guys see that. Yeah? You with me? All right, number 7. I want to do like number 7. Say it again. So I have the cube root of 25 times the cube root of 625. What does that mean, cube root? Remind me again what cube root means. Something times itself, how many times? 3 times give you that number, okay? So I look at this, and there's a couple things you can do. You could say, all right, well, is anything times itself going to give me 25 3 times? No. 625, I don't know off the top of my head. But what do you notice, guys, about the roots here? They're the same. So if you have the same root times the same root, doesn't a house times a house just give us a bigger house? All right, so if I multiply these together, and yes, the number gets a little big, but if you multiply 625 and 25, anybody know what you get? It's 15,625. I don't think any numbers are that big on the quiz, but a house times a house, just a bigger house. Now, the reason we do that, guys, is because we're trying to do what here? We're trying to simplify. We're trying to make smaller. If you wanted to, again, you guys are going to see things differently. Could you have rewritten 25 as 5 times 5? Yes. Could you have rewritten 625 as a bunch of 5s all together? Yes. All I did was just combine it first. But I'm going to come over here and I'm going to say, okay, I have 15,625. I'm going to simplify that. What number, without even trying to add the digits and all that, what number do I know goes into this whole huge number? 5, right? So 5 goes in here. How many times? It's 3125. You guys are going to have to do a little math. I'll simplify here for you. How many times is 5 going to 3125? It's 625. All right, we're getting smaller. How many times is 5 going to 625? We should be able to do this one. 125. How many times is 5 going to 125? 25. How many times is 5 going to 25? All right, so we broke it down. So remember, we're looking for the cube root. How many of a kind do I need? 3. So there's a 3 of a kind. Here's another what? 3 of a kind. So when I simplify this, what does this simplify to? 25. What is the cube root of 15,625 is 25. Now again, you could have broken it down a little differently. You could have done this at the beginning. You could have said cube root of 25 is 5 and 5, right? Times the cube root of, when I break up 625, I get 5 times 5 times 5 times 5. Now, could you write it all together? It'd be the cube root of, how many 5s underneath? 3, 4, 5, 6. And then we can take out 2 of a kind, 2 groups of a kind. But I want you to see, you can simplify separately, or at the beginning you can say, wait, let me just put it all together and simplify that way. The hardest part of that is not the concept of the cube root, it's the numbers big. That's a little intimidating sometimes. So let's look at number 8. I apologize that I cut this page off. Don't know what happened there. So cube root of 5, or 5th root, I'm sorry. All right, so I look at this, I say 5th root. What that means is what number times itself 5 times gives me 6 or 81. I know right off the bat that's not going to work. So what I did, instead of breaking it down at the beginning, I just said, well, a house times a house gives me a what? A bigger house. So I'm going to say 81 times 6. That's an easy thing to multiply. 6 times 1 is 6. 8 times 4 is what? 48. So it's the 5th root of 486. Not as an egregious of a number. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to break it down. I'm looking for 5 of a kind, correct? Well, what number do I know goes into 486 right off the bat? 2, because it's even. So 2 goes into 4 twice. 2 goes into 8 how many times? 4. And then 2 goes into 6 how many times? 3. Okay, 2 does not go into this again. Does 3? How do you know? What's 2 plus 4? 6 plus 3 is 9. So 3 goes into 9. So I'm going to try 3. 3 goes into 24 8 times, right? 3 goes into 3 once. Okay, what number again? Okay, 3 goes into 81 how many times? 27. 3 goes into 27 how many times? 9. 3 goes into 9 how many times? 3. All right, so there's all of our factors. We're looking for the 5th root, so I need 5 of a kind. Do I have 5 3s? I sure do. So I can pull that big 3 out, and then what's left over? We got a 2. We got this little old 2 that doesn't get to come out, so it's 3 times the 5th root of 2. Always just try to break down into the smallest factors that you can. If you want to break it down individually at the beginning, fine. You could have broken 6 into what? 2 times 3, right? And then 81 into 3 times 3 times 3 times 3. So you'd have 1, 3, and then 4 3s. You put them together. Do you guys understand what I'm saying here? You could have said the 5th root of 2 times 6. Sorry, 2 times 3. 2 times 3. And then the 5th root of 81 is 4. 81 is 3 4 times. So think about this. You could have then combined it all together because that's what we did when we multiplied 6 times 81. So you have 2 times 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now where's your 5 of a kind? Right there. That 5 of a kind comes out and the 2 stays in. Either way you want to do it. If you want to break it down individually at the beginning, or if you just want to multiply it together and then break it down as a whole. Either way. Does that make sense? You guys all right? Okay, another one I want to do from this page. Number 9. Does your number 9 look like this? 12, x to the 4th, y to the 7th, z to the 3rd. All right. What root is this asking for? Square root. There's a little 2 out in front that you don't see. So a couple ways you guys can do this. You can divide exponents or you can write the letters out. I'm going to go ahead and break down 12. What can I break down 12 into? A perfect square and a non-perfect square. 4 times what? 4 times 3. Okay. Now some of you are going to say, this makes sense if I do this. How many x's do I have? 4, correct? All right. How many y's do I have? 4, 5, 6, 7. And how many z's do I have? 3, okay? When the numbers aren't real big, this isn't a bad way to do it. If you had y to like 108th or something, then that would be a pain to write out 108 y's. But when you have the square root, you're taking out 2 of a kind, correct? So what is the square root of 4? What times what gives you 4? Okay, so I'm going to bring a 2 out in front. My 3 is going to stay inside because that doesn't help. So do I have a pair of x's that I can pull out here? Yes. Do I have another pair I can pull out? Yes, so that gives me x what? Squared. How many pairs of y's can I pull out? 1, 2, 3, right? So y cubed. And how many pairs of z's can I pull out? Just 1. So what is left over? What's left inside our house? 3, what? 3, y, what? Z. Yeah. 3yz. Another way you could do that, guys, without writing everything out, you can take your exponent, x to the 4th, and divide it by 2. What's 4 divided by 2? So that gives you x squared. Take your y, 7 divided by 2. How many times can 2 go into 7 without going over? 3 whole times, and then you have that 1 left over inside. Whenever you have an odd number, you're always going to have 1 left over. Same thing with z. 2 goes into 3 once with 1 left over. Does that make sense? So either way, you guys need to write it out. Write it out. If you want to do the division, do the division. That's fine. It does not matter. What else do I want to do from this page? Let's do 11. Where does this one start? All right, I'm going to do a bunch of these before. All right, 11. 11 says the cube root of 5, correct? Times the cube root of 50 over the cube root of what? 2? Okay, let's talk through this. Again, there's a bunch of different ways you can see this. This is probably going to be a multiple choice question, so you need to pick the correct simplification. What do you notice first about this problem? They all have the same cube root. So if you have a bunch that are written all separate, what can you do? You can put them all together. Very good. This is a good thing to do here. Look, I'm going to rewrite this as the cube root of, what's on top? 5 times 50 divided by 2. This makes this problem a lot easier, guys. Simplify what's underneath first before you start trying to get the cube root of everything. If I simplify this, this becomes the cube root of, what's 5 times 50? 250, think about money, divided by 2. All right, you guys okay with that? I can simplify that a little more, can't I? What's 250? What's $2.50 divided by 2? 125. Well, what does that help us do? The cube root of 125. What times itself 3 times gives me 125? 5. Whatever is pulled apart, you can put back together. Whatever is together, you can pull apart as long as the roots are the same. So kind of, help yourself out when you have stuff like that. Look at number 13. If I look at 13, it's the what? What does that say? Read that problem to me. Square root of 25 over 3. So the first thing I'm going to do is say, okay, 25 divided by 3. Ooh, not pretty, right? Correct? So this is all put together. What can I do with it? I can separate it. I can separate it as the square root of 25 over the square root of 3. Does that help me? Yes. What is the square root of 25, guys? It's 5 over the square root of 3. All right? You're pretty close to simplify, but what's the problem? What rule are we breaking? Can't have a radical in the denominator. Perfect. How do we get rid of it? You rationalize. You're going to rationalize top and bottom by the square root of 3. 5 is outside of a house. Root 3 is on the inside, so you just stick it together. So this is 5 root 3 over, what's the square root of 3 times the square root of 3? The square root of 9, which is? 3. There you go. Last thing you want to do, 5 is on the outside of the root, right? 3 is not in a root. Do those simplify. If that was 6 on the outside and 3 on the bottom, yes, you could. But this does not. 5 and 3 is not going to simplify. How come I can't cross off the 3 in the numerator and the 3 in the denominator? Why can't I go like this? It's not the same thing. That says the square root of 3. The one on the bottom says the whole number 3. So make sure you see the difference there. Everybody with? All right, I'm going to do 14 is the same thing. Let's do 16. You're going to have something like 16 for sure on your quiz. 7 over 5 minus the square root of 3. What's the problem here? What do you see? That's the issue. There's a radical in the denominator. No bueno. So how do I get rid of it? Multiply. What am I going to multiply by? The conjugate. Perfect. 5 plus the square root of 3. Because what's going to happen when we multiply together? What should happen? The radicals should do what? Cancel out. What you multiply the bottom, guys, by, you have to multiply where? The top. Perfect. So I'm going to go ahead and multiply the bottom just to make sure that it's going to cancel out and I don't waste my time. What is 5 times 5? 25. What's 5 times the square root of 3? So 5 times the square root of 3 is plus 5 square root of 3. Negative square root of 3 times 5 is minus 5 square root of 3. And then negative square root of 3 and positive square root of 3 is minus the square root of what? 9, which is 3. Okay. So guys, what happens right here? They cancel. Good. Can I say 25 minus 3 and get a nice pretty whole number? I sure can. What's 25 minus 3? 22. Perfect. Did what we needed to happen? Did the radical disappear from our denominator? Yes. So now let's just multiply the top. You have to, yeah. So 7 times 5 is 35. Good. Plus, what's 7 times the square root of 3? 7 square roots of 3. And that's it. That's it. You've got to make sure you multiply the denominator by the conjugate. Conjugate means it's the same terms. You are just replacing the middle sign. If it's positive, you make it negative. If it's negative, you make it positive. You guys with me on that? All right, what else do I want to do? Let's look at 20. I think I'm just going to end up writing these all down. And then you guys have on this video and also on the assignment, you have the answers. 20 is going to say to simplify, and it says 2 square roots of 54 minus 11 square roots of 6. Can I, as this is written, just go ahead and combine these two? Say 2 minus 11 is negative 9. No, they don't have like terms, right? They do not have like terms. So we have to try to break them down. So let's talk about 54. What are the factors of 54? 1 times 54, 2 and 27. Is there a perfect square and a non-perfect square inside of 54? What is it? 9 and 6. 9 times 6. Okay, minus. Is there a perfect square and a non-perfect square inside of 6? No. 2 times 3, but those aren't perfect squares. So just leave this as square roots of 6. So let's simplify a little more. What is the square root of 9? 3. So I'm going to bring it outside, and that gets multiplied with the number in front. So 2 times 3 is 6. So I have 6 square roots of 6 minus 11 square roots of 6. Can I now combine those into one singular answer? Yes, how come? They both have the same last name. They're both like terms. I have 6 of something, and I'm taking 11 away, so that gives me what? What's 6 minus 11? What kind of 5? Negative 5 square roots of 6. Good, very good, guys. Very good, very good. What about, let's look at 21. I have 13 times the cube root of 3 minus the cube root of 375. Huh. All right, cube root. Remind yourself again, cube root means multiply something by itself how many times? 3. So I'm just going to leave 13 times the cube root of 3 because there is nothing that's going to times itself 3 times. It gives me the whole number 3. So let's look at 375. What can we break 375 into? Well, come over here. What number goes into 375? 5 does? Okay. How many times does 5 go into 375? I agree. 5 goes into 37. What, 7 times? Right, 7 times? With 2 left over? So this would become 5. You guys agree? Okay, so then 5 goes into 75 again, yeah? How many times? Here, let's do it a different way. I'm letting you guys lead because you're going to be doing this on your own. Let's start with 375. Add the digits. What's 3 plus 7? 10 plus 5. Does 3 go into 15? Yes, so then 3 is going to go into 375. Start with the smallest number. Makes your life a little easier. 3 goes into 3 how many times? Once, right? 3 goes into 7 how many times? 2. With how many left over? 1. And then 3 goes into 15 how many times? 5. Okay, good. Is 3 going to go into 125? What's 1 plus 2? 3. 3 plus 5 is 8, so no. So I know what number is going to go in here? 5. 5 goes into 125 how many times? 25. 5 goes into 25 how many times? 5. So you broke this down into 3 times 5 times 5 times 5. How many of a kind do you need in order to take out a group? How many of a kind do we need? 3. Do we have 3 of a kind right here? Yep. So this becomes 13 cube root of 3 minus 5 cube root of 3. Do you now, guys, have like terms? Yes. So can we subtract now? What's 13 minus 5? This is 8 cube roots of 3. The hardest part for y'all, I think, is going to be just breaking down numbers. But you guys, you've got to be able to handle. All right, do you have any questions about those first few? Any questions about those first few? We're okay? All right, if you go through here, like I said at the end, I'm just going to talk you through these, and then I'm going to rework some. I have everything worked out. It's like my prettiest handwriting ever. What I want to bring to your attention, I'm going to do some of these solving ones. You will not have any that work out to be real gross. I worked out all the answer keys so far, and everything comes out to pretty whole numbers. You got to check and make sure everything's all right. Not, I don't want to say whole numbers, but everything works out pretty. You're not going to have any quadratics or anything like that. So that's a good thing to be mindful of. But let me just scoot ahead and do some more of these solving ones. Let's do number 1 from the solving. It says the cube root of x minus 14 equals -2. All right, when we are solving, the first thing we want to do is isolate the radical. So I'm going to go ahead and circle it and just say, hey, is it by itself? Is your radical by itself? Yes, nothing is being added, subtracted, multiplied, or divided to my circled in green. So how do I get rid of the cube root? What do I raise both sides to? The third power. What you do to one side, guys, you do to the other, always. So this will cancel out. You have x minus 14 equals, what is -2 cubed? That means -2 times -2 times -2. What is it? -8. Perfect. And then what do we do to both sides? You're going to add 14. So x equals what number? 6. What should I do with this? Should I just pat myself on the back and be like, oh, you're so smart, good job? We should check it. I did a formal check on the answer key. You guys will see that. You don't have to, but you need to make sure you check. If you want to just take this in your head and go, okay, plug this in. What's 6 minus 14? If you plug in, we did add 14 to both sides. So -8 plus 14 gave us 6. And then when you plug it back in here, 6 minus 14 is -8. And then the cube root of -8 is -2. What's another solving one I want to do? Yeah, sure. Let's do 13. Look at 13. Let me do 13 right here. 13 says 3x to the 2/3 power minus 30 equals 18. Now, sometimes these can be a little confusing. You're not sure exactly what to do. So again, guys, you want to isolate the radical. In this case, what is your radical? It's the cube root of x squared, right? It's just written as a fraction. But circle that so you see, ooh, I got to get rid of that -30, and I got to get rid of the 3. So what's my first step? What am I going to add to both sides? What do we add to both sides? We add 30, perfect. So you add 30. What you do to one side, you do to the other. So I have 3x to the 2/3 power equals, what's 18 plus 30? 48, good. Now, guys, look, circle again. So you see, clearly you can see, wait, that is not by itself. What do I have to do to both sides? Okay, you guys said we're going to divide by 3, yeah? Okay, so I have x to the 2/3 equals, 48 divided by 3 is 16. Okay, great. So now, again, if you guys wanted to, you could change this to the cube root of 16 squared, or we can say, wait a second, what can I multiply 2/3 by to make it cancel out, to become a 1? 3 over 2. 3 over 2. And what you do to one side, you do where? To the other. Perfect, guys. So 3 over 2. I'm doing this problem for a specific reason, so watch it. So I have x equals 16 to the 3 over 2 power, correct? Okay, so let's talk about this. If I rewrite this, what is 16 to the 3 over 2 power? It's the square root of 16, right? To the third, because that 2 becomes your index. Okay. So if you guys were to solve this, what is the square root of 16? 4. And then 4 cubed is 64. I agree. What did I forget? I didn't really forget it. I left room for it. What? Okay, we do have to plug back in. But what did I forget to go in front of my 4 and my 64? Why? Because it's an even root. This needs to be plus or minus, plus or minus. If you told me that your answer was just 64, did you get all of the answers? No, you only got how many of them? Half. All right, now again, I'm going to save time here. But you got to plug it back in. If you take an even root, square root, fourth root, something like that, you have to plug back in. Guys, you with me on that? Okay, I'm going to do like 3 more. I know it's a lot. I just want to make sure I cover everything. So this is 6x plus 8 to the 1/2. To the 1/2 equal, minus 3x equals 0. Okay, I want to get this all by itself. So what's the first thing I need to do? What do I do? Add 3x to both sides? So equals 3x. What's another way that I could write 6x plus 8 to the 1/2? Is that the same as the square root of 6x plus 8? Yes, guys? Okay. So again, 2 ways you could do this. You could look at it as a square root and then square both sides. Or you could say, well, what do I do with this? What do I do here to get the 1/2 to go away? I would multiply by 2 over 1, correct? Or raise it to 2 over 1, so raise it to the second power. So I have 6x plus 8. Where does that 2 go? Where does that exponent of 2 go? To the 3 and to the x. It's not 3x squared. What is it, guys? 9x squared. Perfect. Make sure you pay attention to that. If you have an exponent, it gets distributed to everything inside the parentheses. Everything, everything, everything. So now what do we have to do? We have to move everything over. So I have 9x squared. I'm going to move 6 over. So minus 6x. I'm going to move 8 over. Minus 8 equals 0. And we do what? What do we do? Should we just jump into the quadratic formula? I wouldn't. I'd see if this factors. 9 times 8 is negative 72. Are there factors of negative 72 that multiply to give me negative 72 but add to give me a negative 6? Minus 12 and plus 6. Good. Again, I might do this differently than you guys do. Since your A term is not 1, you're going to take this 9 and you're going to put it underneath both of these and simplify. So this becomes x minus what? 4 over 3? And this becomes x plus 2/3. Now if I solve these, I have x equals 4/3 and I have x equals... When I have 2 answers, what should I make sure that I do? I should make sure I plug them both back in. To save time, I'm going to tell you right now, when I plug them both in, and I did on the answer sheet, 4/3 makes your equation true, negative 2/3 does not. Do not assume, do not just automatically assume that, oh, okay, they're all going to work or they're all not going to work. Just make sure you guys are checking. All right, I'm going to do on the last page 2 of the evaluated ones, and then I'll stop talking. So, yeah, sure. I'm going to do number 1, where it says g minus f of x, okay? What is very important that you guys understand your answer should look like? What's really important you should understand your answer should look like, guys? You're going to have a whole number in your answer? Or you're going to have letters? Why do you know it's a letter? Because they're telling you to do what? Leave it in terms of what? X. They're telling you that what that says is g function minus the f and leave it in terms of x. So pay attention. If you look on the sheet, your g function is negative 6x plus 4x squared minus 1, correct? Did I write that down right? My f function, so it's minus 3x squared minus 9x plus 4. And it says to leave it in terms of x. So before you guys just start combining, what do I have to do with that minus sign? I have to distribute it. I have to distribute it to all of the terms behind it. So this becomes a plus, this becomes a minus, this becomes a plus, and this becomes a minus. And now can we combine like terms? Yes. It's not written in standard form, but it needs to be when you answer your question. So what's the highest exponent you see? What's the highest exponent we see?
X squared.
X squared. So I have 4x squareds minus 3x squareds. Gives me a total of how many? What's 4x squared minus 3x squared? X squared. All right. I have a negative 6x and a positive 9x. What does that give me? Plus 3x. And then a negative 1 and a negative 4 gives me minus 5. So there you go. That is your answer. That's G minus F in terms of X. That means have an X in your answer. And the last one I'm going to do is number 3 here. And it's F divided by G of negative 2. Now we would normally talk about domain restrictions. I did it on the review so you can look. But what are they asking you to do here? What operation is this? Addition, subtraction, multiplication? It's division, okay? So you're taking the f function. So my f function is 3x squared minus 9x plus 4. And you're dividing it by negative 6x plus 4x squared minus 1, correct? Now we can't start crossing stuff out because everything is connected with plus and minus signs. So you can't say that 3x squared and 6x simplify or anything like that. But do they want my answer in terms of x? No. What do they want me to do with that negative 2? They want me to plug it in for every single x I see. So take your time doing this, guys. In your numerator, you have 3 times, instead of x squared, it's negative 2 squared, minus 9 times negative 2 plus 4. There's your numerator. Your denominator is negative 6 times negative 2 plus 4 times negative 2 squared minus 1. And we just go through, y'all, and simplify. Simplify throughout. What is negative 2 squared? What's negative 2 squared? 4, okay. So then what's 4 times 3? What's 4 times 3? 12, okay. What's a negative 9 times a negative 2? Plus 18 plus 4. Everybody with me? Keep simplifying the numerator while we're going. What's 12 plus 18? 30. And what's 30 plus 4? 34. Perfect. So now let's do the denominator. What is negative 6 and a negative 2? 12, right? Okay. What's negative 2 squared? What's negative 2 squared? 4, and 4 times 4 is? So plus 16 minus 1. So you have 12 plus 16 minus 1. All right, well, what's 12 plus 16? What is it? 28. Minus 1 is 27. Good job. So make sure you guys know what to do in each situation. If you have questions over the weekend, what I need you to do is screenshot the question and then write on it. Like, I don't know how to do this, or can you check my work? Whatever. Send it to me. I'll work it out and then send it back to you. But all of the answers are posted. They're on within this video, and they're also posted in the assignment. So you have everything worked out. If you have questions, let me know over the weekend, okay?